Hello, everybody. I'm Gabe DeSanto. I'm the president of the Ontario High School Conservative Association, and I'm glad that you're able to join us today. Today, we have the MP for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan, joining us today, Garnett Genuis. Garnett was first elected in 2015 to be the MP for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan in Alberta. He is a strong MP and has been, and I quote from his website, among the most outspoken parliamentarians, having spoken more than 100,000 words in the chamber during his first year of office, more than all three major party leaders combined, end quote. So that's a lot of speaking. He is definitely somebody who loves to speak and fight for what's right in the House of Commons. He started writing articles for newspapers when he was 15 years old and still writes for the National Post, Maclean's Magazine, and many, many more. In 2017, he was voted Maclean's Parliamentarian of the Year by his colleagues in the Conservative Party and across all parties. And we thank you, Garnett, for joining us today.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you. As you mentioned, I got my start in politics when I was in kind of junior high and high school. So it's great to be able to connect back with a lot of people who maybe have similar ambitions as to what I had in those days. So thanks for the opportunity, Gabe.
Thank you for joining us. And we always like to start the interview off with our question and answer session, which all the questions in this session are asked by our high school members across Ontario and across Canada. So our first question comes from Jack, and he asks, what is the best part about being a member of parliament?
You know, politics draws a lot of different kinds of personalities. So I think you've probably gotten different kinds of answers. What I like the most about it is the policy aspect of it. So the aspects of the job include interacting with people, going to events, providing service to your constituents, kind of public relations, and these things are all valuable and important. But where I feel most alive is when I'm in the House of Commons, participating in a debate, and in the process trying to analyze a policy issue of critical significance. That legislative and policy work that we do, trying to solve problems for people, that is the pinnacle of it. Other parts of the job, really, you're kind of gathering the information. You're out talking to people, you're meeting with stakeholders, you're kind of filling your head up with the ideas that you're then going to use when you are actually in those situations of legislative debate, where you're taking the ideas you've received and you're putting them forward. I love the House of Commons, right? And I love the atmosphere, right? It's not just like a sort of public speaking club, where it's just kind of one person at a time. There's an intensity to House of Commons debate, with the back and forth, the questions and answers and heckling, and I think it's actually, it may be underappreciated, but it's all important. That sort of cauldron of activity that has a long history of generating serious ideas and conversations. So it's just an honor to be one of the 338 people that's able to actually work in that space.
Well, the thing with the House of Commons, and I'm sure you can definitely vouch for this, is that it really is a place, it really is the center of everything that happens in Canada. It's that place where everybody who represents their members from Newfoundland to BC, the North, everywhere, Ontario, the prairies, everywhere, you guys all sort of come together and discuss the good of the nation, and you get to have those important policy discussions and arguments and trying to figure out what is the best for the nation.
Yeah, look, it's supposed to be that way. I think we need to be vigilant about threats to that principle of parliamentary supremacy, because all the time there are those voices who want us to hand over judgment to various kinds of professionals, bureaucrats, experts. There is definitely a role for for experts and for bureaucrats and public servants and of different kinds in terms of bringing forward suggestions and expertise. But the purpose of Parliament, the purpose of elected officials, is to take all of that experience and expertise and to synthesize it with an eye to the interests and values of all people across Canada. In Parliament to be the deliberative assembly of one nation and to synthesize that experience and expertise and to come up with a result. So notwithstanding what some people maybe say, especially now during the COVID pandemic, we cannot defer the responsibilities of elected officials to experts. We have to do our jobs as well, listening to the experts, but doing our job to assert the principle of parliamentary supremacy and use Parliament to come up with solutions that matter for Canadians.
You couldn't have said it better than that. I mean, you covered COVID, you've covered our situation, you've covered everything about Parliament, and that really is something that citizens of Canada really need to remember of what their government is there for, who should be making this decisions, how far Parliament can go, and how far MPs can go, and that government can go. And I think that really is something that we need to remember. And people like you that are such great parliamentarians that represent us in the House of Commons. So the second question sort of goes back to our convention, the Conservative Party convention a couple of weeks ago. And Javier asks, why do you think that many CPC members had this sort of debate about the climate change that the NDP and the Liberal are making such a big idea and such a big deal over? Why do you think a lot of them voted against the change in policy?
Yeah, so it's an easy thing to explain if you get past the short soundbite, and this is one of the problems of politics today is that a lot of times political parties are looking at grabbing onto those little sound bites that maybe distort the reality. So as a Conservative Party, we have a standing policy declaration. And what's debated at convention are amendments to the standing policy declaration. What I always find interesting is that the media likes to focus on what is voted for or not voted for, often with very little emphasis on, well, what's the text of the declaration already? So just simple example, right? If you have a policy declaration and I'm proposing to add something in it that's already in it, someone might say, well, you shouldn't add that because it's redundant. It's already in there, right? So you might vote down a resolution, not because you disagree with it, but because it's already in the document, right? Or you might say, this is poorly worded, or it's in the wrong place, or it should be somewhere else, or you should be amending an existing section, whatever the case is. But the other side to this is that it can often be easy to make those kinds of arguments at a convention if you don't like the substance of it, right? The other thing that happens is you have long resolutions that may contain some things you like and some things you don't, but there's no way to amend them on the floor, right? So if you say, okay, well, I like this line, right? You say, and there's a lot of different examples of this you can imagine, right? So this was a resolution that said climate change is real, which I think we all believe. And then it went on to say some other things. And, I think some people said, well, do we need this in the policy book, given that we already have language around climate change and environment in the policy book? And are there some ways in which the latter parts of the same resolution aren't entirely clear? So it's just a bit of a process story, and I think the problem is some folks maybe aren't listening long enough for that explanation, and we're not always getting fair explanation or treatment by those in the media, but that is the reality of it. And I think with the climate change plan that our leader has released, it certainly provided some clarity back to folks that we are serious about climate change.
Well, I feel that a lot of people, including the media, like you said, neglect to look at what is there, like you said. I mean, I remember when the policy convention was happening and that people start getting these ideas that conservatives don't believe in climate change, even though it's not true. We obviously do. It's a real thing that's there. Then myself and a couple of other people started spreading around the fact that look at our policy book. It's already there. I think like page 22, I think it was already there in the environment policy. And the way that the media sort of tries to take what we say, twist it around, and try to use it against us when there are so many more issues. And that's where I think people need to sort of understand that you need to look at everything that's happening. And that's such a big
Yeah.
problem that a lot of people have. They don't look at everything, they just like a headline and start to
Yeah.
go off of that without actually reading the article or reading what's happening.
Yeah, I totally agree that there needs to be yeah, there needs to be sometimes that deeper digging. The world of social media and online, I mean, it has pros and cons here, right? Because on the one hand, there's a temptation to just click share if you're energized by a headline without looking at the details. On the other hand, the nice thing is people have so much more opportunity to access that information. So when these debates come up, and if you're a bit skeptical, as you should be, about some of the headlines you're reading, you can look at the specific situation. If you read something about what happened in Parliament or what happened in a parliamentary committee, you can find and actually watch the video. You don't have to rely on the newscast and what it says. So there are challenges, but there are also opportunities in terms of the current flow of information.
That is exactly it. Like you said, I mean, we have so much information available to us, which I think that as a society, as a people, as Canadians, we need to really pay attention to everything that's being said and look at all sides. So the next question is from Jerry in Brampton, and this comes from something I'm sure that you've experienced as a young person when you became involved in politics, and many of our members are experiencing now as there will probably be an election at some point in the next coming months or year or so. How can young conservatives who can't vote yet help make a very impactful change during the next election?
Mm-hmm. Well, so there's lots of different ways, and voting is, of course, very important, and it can be frustrating. It was frustrating for me as a young person who was motivated about politics, not being able to vote. My daughter, my oldest daughter, is 8 years old, and she went door knocking with me in the last election when she was 6. She knows how to do it, um, and she's already frustrated by the fact that she can't vote yet. But I mean, a few different things. So I'm sure most of your viewers know this, but at 14 you can get a party membership, and so the process of selecting your conservative candidate for the next election, that's something that you can be involved in, and usually it's much fewer people in terms of voting in that than in a general election. Um, of course, you can volunteer, you can do get out the vote and campaigning, and the impact that that has is enormous. You might not be able to cast your own vote, but if you can motivate dozens of other people to go to the polls by being an effective volunteer, that goes a long way. So participating in nomination races, getting on your riding association board, taking part in campaigns. I know my deputy campaign manager last time, I think he turned 18 in the middle of a campaign. So he did actually get to vote, but he was already highly involved prior to it. So lots of ways to get involved as an activist, as a volunteer, and and the impact that you'll have will be worth dozens more votes than the one vote you could cast yourself.
Well, as young people that want to get, I mean, our members, we're already starting to get more involved in politics. We do these interviews and ask questions to great conservatives like yourself and like Andrew Scheer a couple weeks back, or the former leader of the party. And we have talked to so many other great candidates that are going to run in the next election for the Conservative Party, whether that's in a month's time or 3 months or 4 months or 6 months, whenever it is. And as young people, we've heard many things from all of our people that came on our show. A lot of them said the same thing, just during campaigns and elections, just go to the campaign manager or the candidate, ask them how that you can get involved, and then from there you can just they'll give you something to do. I'm sure the more the merrier on a campaign. I'm sure they'd love to have more volunteers. And like you said, 14 years old right now, the Conservative Party EDAs are right in the middle of choosing candidates right now. It's that time, to sort of choose your candidate and who's going to run in the next election. So the
Yeah.
last question is from Evan in Ottawa, and he asks, how do you think that the Conservative Party of Canada as a whole can come together as one before the next election?
hmm That's an important question, and especially in the light of the history of this country, we look at our political history, and the Conservative Party has often been divided. For much of my time growing up, we had the Reform and Alliance Party, which was more prominent in the West, and the Progressive Conservative Party. And there have been other splits and points of division if you go back further. Um, we we also see the ways in which Justin Trudeau is accentuating the divisions that exist in not in our party in particular, but in the country as a whole. There is more of a sense where I am here in Alberta that the government doesn't care about the things that Albertans are going through. And I think we see various forms of that regional alienation in a lot of different regions here. And I think we need leadership in the country that says to people, we don't have to choose between the best interests of one region, the best interests of the other. We can prosper together. We can have a greater sense of the common good, of the things that unite us. That's what we can do in leadership, in government. It is a little bit more challenging in opposition because the terms of that debate, in terms of the division, is being set by the government, and we have to respond to that. But I think we have a powerful opportunity to position our party as the party of national unity, as the party of great collective endeavor, of the common good, a party that rejects the kind of regional divisiveness that we see being pushed um, by liberals and others. On Earth Day, the Minister of Heritage posted a post on Facebook that had people in my riding kind of up in arms because it was a picture of Aaron O'Toole jogging with a shirt that said "I love Canadian oil and gas," and then it was of him jogging with a shirt saying "Excellent," saying climate change is real. Now, there's no contradiction between those sentiments, right?
Mm.
There's no contradiction between saying we need Canadian oil and gas and saying that we need to respond to climate change. But this Liberal minister was setting this up in the way he posted it, like it's one or the other. You can't believe in climate change and like oil and gas. It's one or the other, and it's that kind of divisiveness. As an Alberta MP, I always stand up and speak up for the importance of the French language, right? That is an issue in my riding. We do have francophones, not nearly as many though as in some other parts of the country, obviously. So we need more MPs that are speaking about the issues and priorities in different parts of the country and promoting that sense of common endeavor. Within our party, we obviously have different points of emphasis among different which you might call ideological tribes within our party. You've got people who emphasize different issues more or less. But I always find in caucus, there are opportunities to find common ground if we're interested in finding that common ground. Some people may be much more focused on economic issues, and other people are just much more interested in issues to do with strong families and human rights and compassion. And it's good that we have a team with some degree of difference of points of emphasis, because you need to be engaged with all of those issues. You need ministers and shadow ministers for different areas of responsibility. But it has to start from a desire to work together and collaborate. I think generally we have that in caucus, and we need to work to maintain and strengthen that within the wider Conservative Party.
Well, our Conservative Party, as you said already, we have so many branches of people with so many different beliefs that bring us all together as well. There's the more fiscal conservatives, there's social conservatives. There's so many people with different beliefs that are closer to the center, closer to going a little bit more right down the spectrum. And that is one thing that we have that a lot of the other parties don't. If you see the left, I mean, it's split up into a couple parties. You have the Liberal Party, you have the NDP Party, and they don't have what we have of having so many different branches of people joining together. And when it comes election time, we need to really remember that it's all or nothing. I mean, Aaron O'Toole, are we going to vote him in, or are we going to vote Trudeau in for 4 more years? And the answer is simple: we're going to get Aaron O'Toole to win the election and become the next prime minister. But I think as conservatives, we need to really remember that and say this is our chance to become the next government, and Aaron O'Toole will do that for us. And he are great candidates like yourself, and like Melissa Lensman down in Thornhill. She just had her campaign launch the other day, and Pierre Poilievre, which I'm sure you know very well in Parliament. He's in Carleton in Ottawa, the only
Yeah.
conservative seat in Ottawa right now. Hopefully he can get more friends to join him from Ottawa in Parliament next time around. And that's what we need to remember as Conservative Party. Just stay united, and that's how we'll win.
Yeah, so lots of great points you made there. I mean, I think in some sense the Conservatives and the NDP are both conviction parties, right? The Conservative Party is defined by convictions. The NDP is defined by convictions, and the Liberal Party. I mean, I'm not saying there are no people in there with conviction, but generally, when you're talking about liberals and conviction, you're talking about a criminal conviction, not a conviction in terms of beliefs. The within our party, there are people with, of course, different kinds of convictions, different beliefs on different issues, and part of, I think, that conservative disposition uh, is seriousness, focus on the results, and prudence, discipline, right? Recognizing that we have to sacrifice things in order to advance shared concepts of value. So there are limits to the compromises that people are going to be prepared to make, and it's good that there be limits to the compromises you're prepared to make. But we also have to always keep our eyes on the prize. And I have not served under any leader who I agreed with 100% of the time, and I express my views in caucus and in conversations with others. But we need to focus on the results and the common good, and recognize that this election could be pretty existential for the future of the country. I mean, you've got rising separatist sentiment in the West, rising separatist, sovereigntist, whatever you want to call it, sentiment in Quebec. This is reflective of Justin Trudeau's failed approach to building unity in the country. And that's what we need to change as conservatives.
Perfectly said. Like you said, we just need to really, in the next election, like it will be beneficial that what we see and what we do in the next election, because that will determine the future of our country. So before we wrap up, we always like to have a casual, friendly chat where we talk about young conservatives and how they can get more involved. So what do you think the number one thing that young high school conservatives can do to get more politically active? And what's a piece of advice you'd give them?
Mm-hmm. Well, you talked about this earlier, showing up to campaigns, offering to get involved, and uh, being willing to work hard, being when you're brand new to an organization, stepping up and saying, I'll take on that difficult task. You need someone to wave signs at 6 a.m, or do the late night preparation tasks, whatever it is. I'm the person that you can count on to get that done. And starting off just by establishing a reputation for commitment and hard work. You you don't expect to walk in at a campaign and say, well, I'm just going to sit around and offer strategic advice, right? Campaigns always have more people prepared to offer strategic advice than they need, and not enough people prepared to do the hard, unglamorous work that campaigns actually need done. But as you establish yourself and as you build those relationships and that reputation for hard work, then you'll start to have more opportunities, and people will start to get your opinions more, and you'll be able to move up into positions of more influence and opportunity. And that movement can happen very, very quickly. My own trajectory, I started volunteering on campaigns. I participated in the Conservative Party's internship during university, and then I got hired into a full-time position in PMO after that. That was just an administrative position. But even while I was getting coffee and making photocopies, I would try to read everything I was photocopying to absorb all the information I can. So for most people, you start out in those kind of worker type tasks, but you can still work to soak up the information, and then as time goes on, take on greater and greater roles.
That is really what I think a lot of young people that want to get involved in politics need to follow some of that advice. Get involved during campaigns. There's no better time than to get involved during an election. And when there's not an election around, still pay attention to what's going on. If you're a high school student, join the OHSCA. You don't only have to be in Ontario, anywhere in Canada. If you want to join our group, you are most welcome to. You can find our links on our website. They're going to be in the description below. And just there's so many opportunities that are in our country to get involved in politics at an early age. And like we said, although you may not be able to vote in general elections, you can vote in your local races in the leadership whenever there may be a leadership in a long time. Whenever that happens, you get to get involved with that. So thank you, Garnett, for joining us today. Thank you for your time. We really thank you for for joining us on the show and having this great chat. And that is it. We really thank you all for joining us today. Make sure to look for more videos coming soon. We have lots of other great videos already out, interviews. Make sure to watch them in our channel. And follow our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook accounts at Ontario HS Cons for info about our next interview, what else we're doing, some great content. And make sure to look at our website at ontariohsconservatives.org for everything you need to know about us, everything that you need to know about our projects, our social channels, everything is on there. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss another video. And we hope to see you all soon. Thank you.